Good evening. I call this public meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors to order on Thursday, October 26th at 6:31 p.m. I would like to remind our community that the purpose of our board meetings is to conduct the business of the district first and for everyone to learn about the district in a safe and productive manner. Our first item on the agenda is community comments. Community comments is an opportunity for our community to share their ideas and opinions with the board. Input is welcomed and valued. It is our duty to keep it safe and respectful for everyone, students, staff, and our community. This is not a time for discussion or debate. If you have materials for the board, please give them to the board secretary, who will distribute them to the board members after the meeting. Letters to the board are always welcome, and each of us reads the input. Requests for information should be requested as outlined in policy KBA-AR. An individual desiring to speak will have indicated their desire prior to the board meeting. An individual with a disability will be given an equal opportunity to participate in board meetings. This may include someone speaking on their behalf if their disability or other medical need limits their ability to attend in person. Board policy also speaks to the accommodations available. A speaker will be required to give their name, city of residence, and the group, if any, that is represented. If there are more patrons desiring to present comments than time allotted, the board chair has the authority to reduce the presentation time for individual speakers or institute a prioritization process with first priority to students and city of residence. Speakers may offer objective criticisms of district operations and programs that are of a concern to them. The board is restricted from hearing and will not consider complaints regarding any individual staff member or any person connected with the district. Comments that make a staff member identifiable to the public, even without their specific name, violate our policy. As an organization centered around youth and their positive development, all speakers will model respectful public comment and be mindful of civil discourse. We will keep the order of speakers announced by me, the chair. So our first is Kylie Corbus. Michael or Jennifer, is one of you speaking on her behalf? So you will state the name. Oh, excuse me. Thank you. You will state your name, the city of residence, and any group that you represent, and then the clock will begin. We just want to make sure we're not blocking anyone in the gallery from being able to see the board meeting.
Check, check. All right, Michael Corbus, Oak Grove. I've been shining a light on the bias and silencing tactics in the district towards conservatives and/or Christians for a year now, because the bigotry needs to stop, and all students and families need to be respected and honored without favoritism. Tonight, I come with hard evidence, and I ask that you not violate my First Amendment right to speak. Okay, I'm not going to try to mention people's names. I'm just sharing something that's an issue. I'm going to share real-life examples of some of your favorite slurs, and that students pick up on as well, that even some of you use to silence those who identify as conservatives and/or Christians for believing and thinking differently than you want them to. They are bigoted lies, and they need to stop. Let's start with one that one of you posted, not here tonight, but this one involves a slur some of you and others throw around without even thinking about it. One of your favorite slurs basically says, if you're a conservative Christian and you think differently than me, you're a Christian nationalist. I hear it all the time, all the time. This was done by one of the board members. Or how about your favorite district bully on her Twitter? She is prolific with the slurs at conservatives and/or Christians. I could go on for days, but let's show you just a couple of the lowlights tonight. She retweeted this. Conservatives harbor the vast majority of the rapists, child sex traffickers, grifters, and liars. I mean, that's a teacher. That's a very biased opinion. Or how about this cartoon? This is really disgusting. She tweeted 2 days after 6 people were killed at a Nashville Christian school. It depicts a classroom at the school with blood coming from the African-American man that was killed and 3 students killed in that Nashville Christian school. It's a sick joke. It was to take a shot at conservatives and prove she is part of the systemic bias I speak of against Christians and conservatives. Or how about the story from May, just before the election, that was in the district news website, The Compass? In an article on one of your opponents in last year's election, a conservative former teacher in the district, it says this candidate was associated with, and I quote, far-right, homophobic, transphobic, and racist people. All lies, all disgusting lies. And they were condoned and printed by the district. That's a problem with bias. They also had a problem that she had a conservative African-American man support her. Strangely, there were no negative articles on any of you. I wonder why. Because that student news site is part of the systemic bias against people who identify as conservatives. It's undeniable. Or how about this one? I'll wait till the next set of time starts to finish that out. Can I just go and you start it up?
Can we do another 3 minutes? All right. And now this is your time, Michael.
Okay. Or how about this? Some of your most fervent supporters, this is the one that's real disgusting. A former member of the board last year were ruthless to an LGBTQ candidate and a candidate who's a person of color on the conservative side. Both these candidates supported my family in the situation that we've been in and have become friends, and I'm going to defend them tonight. The former board member said the candidate of color was being used by 3 conservative candidates. Like she can't have her own independent thoughts that are formed from her life experience. Is it not racist to say someone is being brainwashed because they don't believe and think how the progressive left demands they do based on the color of their skin? Do people of color and LGBTQ not get to believe and think differently than the progressive left demands they do? A good question. Or do you look the other way or join in when others tear them down, just so long as it helps you maintain power and control? More proof of systemic bias against people who identify as conservatives. All these incidents are irrefutable evidence of systemic bias in the district against people who don't fall in line and think and believe the way you demand they do. Even now, some of you may be looking at me thinking one of your favorite slurs about me. He's a sexist. Meanwhile, I defend my wife and my special needs daughter. He's a homophobe. I support an LGBTQ candidate. He's a racist. He's a Christian nationalist, or who knows what else, for simply defending my family. I've certainly heard it online from some of your most fervent supporters. And for confronting the progressive bigotry in the district. It ain't right and it needs to stop. And one last thing I want to say in the last minute here. I was looking at some of your campaign platforms, which mention, among other things, honoring and respecting all religions, and also talking about your experience with advocacy for special needs students, which sounds good. But then it seems if a teacher friend of yours, the district's favorite bully, engages in totally inappropriate use of mandatory reporter status and threatens my wife and daughter to call Child Protective Services and have our special needs daughter taken away out of spite and to try to silence us, you toss out your campaign platform and go into full defense mode for this teacher friend behavior, which is indefensible. And why do you do this? Because I assume because you believe, since we identify as conservative Christians, you can get away with it. At least you have in the past. In other words, your campaign platform means nothing if a special needs family with the wrong religion speaks out, or the wrong politics. Tell me, how am I to see this any different when you defend this teacher friend week after week, violating your own no debate rule? Is that not the case? I'd like to know. You need to stop defending the indefensible and take appropriate disciplinary action. And I will say, you mentioned the meeting last week. We'd love to take you up on that
All right,
to
your
discuss
time is
this.
up. Thank you.
Also, next week,
All right.
I'm not going to speak.
James
The lovely
Bond.
Jennifer is going to speak. So you don't have to deal with me.
James Bong, are you here? All right, thank you. If you could come on up. State your name, your city of residence, and a group, if any, that you represent.
Well, my name is James Bong, and I live next to Rex Putnam High School, unincorporated Clackamas County. And my concern is, our group's concern is that safe routes for children to school. I've lived on Gordon Street my entire life. My parents bought a home on Gordon the year the high school opened. And my dad always told me it was no man's land because none of the sidewalks were fixed and Rothy was a nightmare, and it still is today. Every day there's an incident on Rothy at one Gordon Street or Austin Street with cars exceeding the speed limits, not obeying the school zone signs, and it's out of control. We've been in touch with the Clackamas County safety engineers, and in 2014, I worked with them, and I ended up going to the board of directors meeting to try to resolve some of the issues. And then, of course, after that, the safety engineers contacted me, and we met at Rothy and watched people driving by with their cell phones and cars speeding. And then they decided, well, we'll possibly slow it down and we'll do all this work. And since then, there's only been a small portion of things that have been done to help the traffic on Rothy. Now, talking with Christian at the county board, or at the safety engineer, they are going to slow the traffic down on Rothy Road. We have a huge problem with another problem with the cars using Gordon Street as a turnaround. They come down Gordon Street to pick up the students, the parents do, and we need better signage on the school gate that says "Do not enter," and possibly a sign up at the top of the hill that says you can't say one way or a wrong way, because then the people wouldn't be able to go down the hill. But something needs to be done there to help. Also, the signage for the school is very poor. When you come down Rothy, I think Google directs everybody down Gordon Street towards the high school, and Austin is actually the entrance to the high school. And there's not enough signs. The county is going to work on that. They're supposed to be working with the school board. But the point of being here is just to make this committee aware of what's going on. And there's possibly going to be an incident one of these days where somebody gets severely hurt. Every day, like I said, you see incidences in the crosswalks, people almost getting ran over, the kids. Today, I took a little kindergarten to the parents across the street asked me to take their daughter down to the bus stop. So the bus comes up the hill, the bus stops, turns on its lights, and the people are honking at us after I talk to the bus driver. So hopefully we can get something done.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Alexandra Lander. All right. If you could state your name, your city of residence, and a group if you are representing one, and then your time will start.
Okay. Alexandra Lander. My phone always calls it Jennings Lodge. And what else did you need?
A group if you represent a specific group.
Well, I'm part of them, but we have no name. Okay, well, thank you all for your time tonight. The issue that I'm bringing forth, that I also brought forth to the county meeting that they were at, is so these parent turnarounds on Gordon Street are problematic for two reasons. One, there's a lot of us that work remotely on that street, and to hear this constant slamming of doors for 10 minutes and scratching gravel turnarounds, and at least they have quit doing driveway turnarounds. They do 3-point turns. But the other part of the problem, besides being disruptive, and that dead end street wasn't built for drop-offs. It's very tight, and there's no room for 10 people to come in at once in the last 5 minutes before the bell rings, and that's what happens almost every day. I see walking students having to negotiate around all these cars, all turning around and stopping and waiting for each other. And then there's always the stragglers that play chicken with the buses on their way out, and it's just chaotic. That street should not be used for a drop-off. And what the county told me was, I get why the parents do it. It's hard to get in and out of Rex Putnam. It's hard. And I have a win-win situation for everybody. It's what my high school did when I was in high school. if they could put a traffic light at the high school driveway that operates during pickup time and drop off time in the morning and evening, and like doing the whole red light, green light, people would know they would have a good chance of getting out in time and then quit using our street as a shortcut. And also anyone else trying to get in and out of the high school, especially during football games. And then it could be timed to just blink yellow the rest of the day in between those two busy times. And they could set it to operate during sporting events. When it just blinks yellow the rest of the day, that would solve their problem of slowing cars down. Whenever there's a blinking light, they a little bit slow down. And so I proposed this to the county. I know it takes loads of money and an act of Congress and whatever, but I really think that's the solution. Then parents would have a motivation to not use our street. The walking kids would be safe and not have to duck out of the way of cars turning around in front of them. A skateboarder had to jump off his skateboard and grab it because a car got in his way. And so I don't know. I would love your support in this. I don't know if you've already tried to get one and they wouldn't give it to you or what, but it just makes sense. It just makes perfect sense. So I would love your support on that if it actually starts to happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And last, Joyce Johnson. If you could just tell us your name and then the city, and I'm assuming you're with the group without a name right there, so
With
that's
the gang
fine.
of three, we're gonna
Yes.
call us the gang of three.
All right,
I'm gonna speed read mine, so I get everything in. It's my style.
so just state your name and your city of
Joyce
residence.
Johnson in Milwaukee. I live
Excellent,
by
thank
Putnam,
you.
also on Gordon Street. I'm on the north end of Gordon, so across Rothy. Several of us Rex Putnam High School neighbors on and off Rothy Road are trying to get something done about establishing a better functioning school zone regarding pedestrian safety and traffic control. The county's been trying to help us with challenges at the stretch of road between 99 and Oatfield presents to the school zone. Christian Snuffin has been fielding our many questions and ideas and has, in order to thoughtfully come up with a plan, he has proposed improvements that could be put into a plan and has an idea for touch crosswalk lights that will, he hopes, be put into the walk bike plan that is due to be done in January. And I've been working with the Oak Grove Community Council about making sure we get something in on that. And he said he thought that would help, showing that the county has support for development there. This neighborhood is in a less developed area, and the fact that the school hides off the road makes it difficult for visitors and delivery people to find. The road is used primarily as a link between the two main roads that it connects, and people often travel at higher speeds getting from end to end. That's just kind of what they do. There's just like a ton of school traffic and then a ton of end-to-end traffic. They ignore the school zone. New crosswalk signs were put up in 2017 through Jim's hard work. Took almost 3 years to get them erected. And that was with maintenance money. And that's the complaint, is that it's never been put into the capital budget for a real school zone since 1963. So it's frustrating. We've been encouraged to develop a more comprehensive plan with involvement of the county traffic department and the school district, and to apply for a Safe Routes to Schools grant. I'm here to ask for the school board to ask for a plan development that includes an upgrade with lighting for a new Rex Putnam High School sign at the corner of the entrance driveway at Rothy and Austin. The existing entrance sign is not easily visible from both east and westbound traffic. Putnam has a lot of visitors to events that have a difficult time finding the school and the entrance to parking, and then all the problems with the exit driveway. I'm asking that the one dead-end sign on the Gordon Street portion of the exit driveway that is north of the gate be marked high school exit only, and to include no turnaround for east and westbound traffic to see at Rothy and Gordon. The small no school access sign is only visible to westbound traffic, and it's an insufficient marker for this one-way exit. Residents of this short exit street find the need to put up signs and barricades to keep their driveways private. Parents park in the no parking zone and wait for students, and turn around in people's driveways for a half hour morning and night. Also, night parking for events is a disturbance in the same way. Ideas are needed to address this issue for the residents there. I'm also advising that the school hang a sign saying, please use entrance driveway for student pickup and drop off on the fence by the gate, along with the do not enter signage.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
And
If there's-
Cindy's going to work with us, and so I'm real excited about that. She contacted us this morning.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, the views and opinions expressed during community comments are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the positions of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors. The letters we have received since the last meeting consist of an email about the Happy Valley Middle School Great Schools rating and an email about the Wichita Center Strategic Partnership request. And now we will begin with our native land acknowledgement. Vice Chair Wei will lead the acknowledgement this evening.
Thank you. We acknowledge the land on which we sit and which we call the North Clackamas School District rests on the traditional and indigenous lands and village sites of the native peoples of the Kalapuya, Chinook, Molalla, and the Clackamas. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the ability to learn, work, and be a community on this land, and we offer thanks to the original caretakers of this region. We recognize the historic policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected Indigenous and Native families, both past and present, and that will affect those in the future, and honor the resilience and revitalization of our Indigenous and Native communities. We pay respect to our elders, both past and present, who have been stewards of this land throughout the generations.
Thank you. Would everyone please rise? And Director Dobson, will you lead the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In the board packet, you will find the minutes of the October 12th, 2023 meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Chair, I move approval of the minutes from October 12th, 2023 general meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Properly moved by Director Bauer and seconded by Director Wei. Is there any discussion? I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
I'm aye as well. All those opposed, nay. The motion passes 5-0. I had to think about who we were missing tonight. We have approved the minutes of October 12th. Thank you. In the board packet, you will also find the minutes of October 21st, 2023 governance meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Chair, I move approval of the meeting minutes from October 21, 2023.
Is there a second?
Director Dobson, second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved by Director Wei and seconded by Director Dobson. Is there any discussion? I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes again with a vote of 5-0. In the board packet, you will find the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. The single item on the consent agenda is employment changes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Director Dobson, I move approval of the consent agenda for employment changes, October 26, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second, Bauer.
Thank you. It has been moved by Director Dobson and seconded by Director Bauer. Is there any discussion? Sorry, I missed that. I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes with a vote of 5-0. Thank you. So next on our agenda is the Native American Heritage Month proclamation. Director Bauer will begin reading the proclamation.
Need to be ready. Whereas National Native American Heritage Month celebrates and recognizes the accomplishments of the peoples who were original inhabitants, explorers, stewards, and settlers of the United States, and
Whereas, for more than 500 years, Native communities across the Americas have demonstrated resilience and resistance in the face of violent efforts to separate them from their land, culture, language, and each other. They remain at the forefront of movements to protect our earth and the life it sustains. And
Whereas the North Clackamas School District is deeply committed to equity and inclusion. This stance includes the cultural affirmation of our students, staff, parents, and community members who identify as Native or Indigenous people. And
Whereas the North Clackamas School District serves to close the equity and outcome gaps for Native American and Alaskan Native students through policies and practices that reflect the experiences of Indigenous peoples, ensure greater access and opportunity, and honor Native and Indigenous roots, history, heritage, and contributions. And
Whereas our community is better because of the diversity of our population. Is there a motion to approve the proclamation? Director Bauer?
I move to approve the proclamation of the Native American Heritage Week Month.
Is there a second?
second,
Is there any discussion? It has been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion? I'm sorry. As I just railroad over that, I apologize. Is there any discussion or comments from our board members?
I'd like to comment if you
Director
all
Dobson.
indulge me for a couple of minutes. So I know that for some people there can be a disconnect between these, formal board meeting proclamations and just everyday life. So I wanted to just spend a minute and share with all of you one of the reasons that this particular proclamation is so important to me. So many of you may know that Oregon is home to 9 federally recognized tribal nations. But what you may not know is that for thousands of years before that, Oregon was home to more than 60 tribes, speaking 18 different languages and living in hundreds of villages all across the state. In 1954, Congress passed Public Laws 587 and 588, which essentially revoked federal recognition of most of these tribes, if not all, and certainly all of the tribes west of the Cascades, which is where we are. And it wasn't until decades later that they handed back just a few formal recognitions of the tribes that live in Oregon, just a small handful of them. And this, of course, was something that happened to a population of Indigenous people who had already been decimated by violence and by disease and displacement. So all of that is to say that there are many Native Americans who are unrecognized by the federal government to this day, and that a proclamation like this may be a small thing, but it's an opportunity to recognize both the ancestors and the proud descendants of all of the Indigenous peoples that lived in the state of Oregon, regardless of whether the federal government has designated them an official tribe. So I appreciate that we as a board and as a district take time out of our schedule and time in these meetings to honor these people who deserve our continued respect.
Thank you. Is there any other comment or discussion? Director Bauer?
Thank you, Chair Benaloga. I just wanted to share quickly that I'm forever grateful for the experience that I had personally living on the Colville Reservation in Washington. I grew up there and had almost 10 years there. I learned a lot about a really rich culture, and I remember the respect they have for their elders, each other, and the land. They have that. I consider them the first environmentalists. They really are. But I remember the elder people coming into our classroom and sharing their culture and sharing their stories. And even at a young age, I remember thinking when they were saying how they were relocated, and then they were relocated again when Cooley Dam was built and their village was flooded, their sacred burial sites were flooded. They lost a lot. And Kettle Falls became no longer a falls where they were fishing. So in light of all of that, they just had tremendous fortitude, as we said in our resolution here. And I just am grateful for that experience. Then I'll take that with me forever. There were a lot of broken promises, but they always made the best and saw the best of their life. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or discussion? All right, I will call for a vote on the motion. Director Bauer?
Aye.
Director Dobson? Director Kemp?
Aye.
Director Way?
Aye.
And Director Benaloga? Aye. So the motion passes with a vote of 5-0. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the North Clackamas School District hereby proclaims the month of November 2023 as Native American Heritage Month in the North Clackamas School District and encourages all residents to honor Native American history and culture adopted this 26th day of October 2023. Thank you. So next on the agenda is Budget Committee vacancies update. We want to give our community information about the progress in filling our Budget Committee vacancies. We received 23 applicants by the deadline of Friday, October 13th. And the list of applicants can be found in our public board book. All of the board directors that were all the board directors were given the opportunity to review the applications and to determine who they recommend to proceed to the interview stage of the application process. And a special meeting has been scheduled for November 2nd to interview those who have moved forward in the interview process, and the board will appoint budget committee members at the November 9th board meeting. Are there any comments or discussion from the other directors?
I just wanted to thank everybody who applied, was willing to step up and become involved in this process. I served on the budget committee and applied twice. And I know it's a process, but I just really appreciate that members of our community are willing to step up and take part in it.
Thank you. Vice Chair Way?
Thank you. Absolutely. Just also echoing Director Dobson's points, just really grateful for all the community volunteers who've stepped up and expressed interest. And it was really great I know that some people may not like reading all the applications one by one, but I actually definitely enjoyed reading through each one and just getting a sense of who all these wonderful folks are in our district, whether they're community members or just moving into the district with young kids or, have been living here their whole lives. It was just really great to see a whole diverse array of folks who were interested.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? And I also just want to thank the community, and I think it's wonderful to have 23 applicants that are interested in learning more about our budget process and being involved in that process with the district. So we appreciate everyone who expressed their interest. All right, we are now, next on the agenda is the early learning presentation, elementary programs. I welcome Executive Director of Elementary Schools, Patrizia Ahrens, for this agenda item, and she will introduce her guests.
Okay, good evening. And please allow me to introduce this team of educational leaders whose passion and commitment for education have been instrumental in changing the experience of our younger learners. And I also hope that you find some connections with the data literacy information that you received in previous presentation. So we have here tonight Jen Burkert, our early learning coordinator, Marie Claire Winnicott, our social emotional learning coach, and Diana Nye, Associate Director for Teaching, Learning, and Professional Development. So here they are.
If I can figure this out here a second. Good evening, everyone. School board, community members, colleagues, we are thrilled to be here this evening to talk about all things early learning. Before diving into the presentation, we always want to take a moment to just acknowledge the collective efforts for the work we're about to share. We want to honor the work of our children and our families and our hardworking teachers and paraeducators, also our principals who are instructional leaders in our buildings. Also, I just want to acknowledge at the district level, our executive leadership who continues to prioritize this work and really help guide us in our journey. And also just here at the table, it's so wonderful to be here with teaching, learning, professional development, and elementary programs. We really work to collaborate together to keep equity at the center and align our efforts. So this really is a group effort, the work that we're going to share this evening. Feel that? Tonight, we'll be sharing an overview of the work of North Clackamas has been engaged in specific to early learning. We're going to do some background on early learning, talk about some of the programs and initiatives we're engaged with, successes, opportunities, and then our final piece will be around our continuous improvement efforts. Because we have new members on the board, we'll gladly take this opportunity to just review why early learning is so essential. It's important to remember at the time and the effort and the funds allocated for early learning is the absolute best investment we can make in the long-term success for our students. Early childhood education and care continues to have the highest return on investment according to decades of research. And that's not surprising when we consider that 95% of the brain development happens in the first 5 years, and not just the brain development, but the architecture of the brain is developing during those first 5 years, right? Your aptitude for music and art and problem solving and building, and all of those pieces are really just forming and organizing in the brain. And if the bulk of the brain development occurs in the earliest years, it's no surprise that access to high quality preschool programs has even a higher impact on equity. And it's because of this acknowledgement that our district and our county and our state and our nation have all begun to prioritize investments in this work. If prioritization and alignment are key, we are well on our way. As you can see here, the Oregon Department of Education, a new agency at the state, the Oregon Department of Early Learning and Care, and the North Clackamas Strategic Plan are all in alignment on this work. While we'll touch on several of these points today, our real focus is going to be around strengthening our instructional practices and our assessment practices as well. So with improvement efforts, it's essential to really narrow our focus. Areas that need the most attention or reap the greatest benefits of where we've really focused. So you'll soon learn about our continuous engagement in the improvement of mathematics and the implementation of community circles and regulation skills. In addition, we've made considerable investments in growing our preschool programming and shifting our early literacy practices. Preschool has been a priority, as you know, to access that high quality preschool. Increasing that access has been a priority. It really connects to graduation rates, as we've talked about before. And just this week in the New York Times, they equated access to preschool to ACT and SAT scores. And right now in our county, only 15% of eligible children have access to high quality preschool. So that has a devastating and disproportionate impact on our communities from opportunity. We also know that children's reading level by grade 3 has been one of the strongest predictors of future success for some time. One of the scholars that we study, Dr. Zorda Hammond, has gone as far to say that literacy is the epicenter of our equity work. And we have large shifts to make in our instructional practices around early literacy. So with those large shifts comes some considerable time and investment. While we will protect our investments and continue this work and keep these plates spinning, so to speak, we are also going to be shifting our main focus onto math as we implement our new and promising math curriculum that you'll hear a little bit about soon. So where are we with preschool? I am delighted to share that we are full. Our preschool program at Oak Grove is full and even on a wait list. Our beautiful, intentional, I may be a little bit biased here, aligned full day free preschool at Oak Grove Elementary is in full swing. And as we talked to you in the past, adding preschool is one thing, but really aligning those practices to what we're doing in kindergarten through and first and second and beyond is really what makes this work sing. So our current preschool teachers are right now working, not right this moment, but during the school day are working collaboratively with our kindergarten teachers, and they're already beginning some of that alignment to make some of that seamless transition. And now that we feel like we're beginning to have a solid program at Oak Grove, we're even working with some of our community preschool programs to uplift that work and really align some of our practices. So as students are coming in from other preschools, we're building that alignment work. And as funding and capacity allows, we also hope to expand our access for students across our system. High quality programs do not design themselves. Over the course of the last school year, we spent considerable time learning from programs that are consistently recognized as high quality, mostly around academic and social and emotional gains. Dr. Yvonne Dibley, who is not here this evening, and Dr. Kalia Williams-Rodriguez, who is, and I spent some considerable time studying programs such as the programs in Chicago, Texas, Vancouver, BC, and Boston, observing and speaking with students and teachers, directors, administrators, all from program quality, implementation, and funding structures. So many lessons were learned. I could fill another entire presentation, but some of the highlights were really, again, learning how they kept an academic focus, but really within a trauma-informed environment. Their guided play-based learning was to the delight and wonder of students. And really what was apparent is, as you see in this picture right here, it's one thing to see children play, and then sometimes we wonder, what are they really learning? Many of these programs were very adept at documenting that learning and really reflecting that learning back to the families and to the students to really highlight what that higher level thinking that was happening in those programs. So you will see that in our preschool as well. So we also are working on sustaining and developing partnerships to increase that access. Right now, we have several partnerships in our district. We partner with the Clackamas Education Service District. We have 6 classrooms from early childhood special education and Head Start to Success. We partner with the Metropolitan Family Services. They have a longstanding partnership with us since 2006. We do Ready, Set, Go, which is at Wichita and Bilquist, where they have a culturally responsive program that transitions 3, 4, and 5-year-old children and their parents and caregivers. They have classes right alongside their students so to help that transition. And we also have 6 classrooms at Wichita where we partner with the Clackamas Education Service District, where they have Head Start to Success and early childhood special education. The early Head Start to Success is prenatal to age 3. So lots of partnerships to make this work happen. So as you can see, we're very passionate about preschool, but we're equally energized by our early literacy work. We've been working over the last several years on our multi-tiered system of support, which really keeps core instruction at the center. That diagram on the left really describes our multi-tier system of support that ensures all students have access to core, but also ensures that when there are interventions needed for some students, that we have those as well. Through this work, we have consistently been reminded that if less than 80% of our students are proficient in an area of instruction, our efforts are better utilized working on core instruction. So to that end, over the past 2 years, we've completely revised our literacy instructional framework from anywhere from the minutes, the structure of what's happening in the classroom, clear guidance and supports on explicit and systematic phonics, and how to differentiate within that core as well. So if supporting core early literacy is the what, we also attend to the how, right? We want to think about what are the best, what's the research on implementation. So we continuously focus on that alignment effort, as we spoke about before. We've started with pre-K through second grade, and we've begun to add third grade into that work. But research continues to confirm that there are three essential elements when you're trying to implement large shifts across the system, especially when we're talking about instruction. The first one is that the professional development has to be timely, exactly what the teachers need when they need it. Needs to be specific and narrow. You'll learn in a second in our video about grade-specific coaching, and it has to be very effective. The second one is that it needs to be followed up immediately by coaching and modeling. So right in the classroom. So we learn it and then we go see it and we do it with a coach. And then the third one is that we really want to start with a coalition of the willing. Sometimes we think we need to start with teachers who need more support, but the research shows that if we start with teachers who are engaged and ready to take on this work, the data starts telling the story, which you'll see in a little bit, and the excitement builds and more teachers are ready to get on board. So that's exactly what we've done with our cohorts. So I'm about to share a little video. And in this video, you're going to see work specific to Milwaukee El Puente and kindergarten. That's just the narrow focus that we had for this video. However, what you're going to see is happening kindergarten through second grade across our entire district.
I think something really special about our model is that we've got grade level specific support for teachers. So rather, what kindergartners are doing right now in reading is a very different thing than what second graders or fifth graders are doing.
It's really helpful to have feedback in real time or directly after a lesson. It's also very helpful to work with a coach who has taught kindergarten and who has experience in primary. Kindergarten is such a unique grade level, and working with someone who understands that age and understands how students begin to learn to read has been incredibly helpful.
It's very important, I think, to have an experienced person as a coach that has taught in a dual language immersion classroom, because even though there are similarities in the process of like how a kid learns how to read, there is the aspects of, you know, what it means to be to become an emergent bilingual student.
In the past, professional development was a place that you went to, and you'd spend a few hours, you'd learn something, you'd probably try a couple of things out.
I look at professional development as more of like an umbrella of like a general idea that we're going to go over, or multiple strategies that can be used in the classroom, versus coaching is more personalized because you're working with a particular teacher or a particular team of teachers and really focusing on what they want to work on using aspects of the professional development.
We used to use a lot of patterned text in kindergarten, and that was really helping kids feel like readers. So instead of having kids feel like readers, we're making sure that kindergartners are readers by teaching them the phonics skills that they need, and then having opportunities to apply that learning using decodable texts, apply that learning in their own writing. So we're really connecting all those pieces together so kids don't just feel like readers, but they are.
Understanding how students decode and incorporating aspects of the science of reading into our classroom, whereas in previous years, we would have taught students to memorize words that appear frequently in books that they're reading. Now we're actually teaching them to decode those words. So they're truly reading those words. They're not recalling words from memory. So I have always enjoyed collecting data from my students. I find it really exciting to see their growth and keep track of their growth throughout the year, and also share that growth with them. But this is the first year in working with Jamie and our other coaches in the emergent literacy cohort where I feel like I actually know what to do with that data on an individual level.
I've learned more about the skills that students need to learn how to read and was able to explicitly teach students those skills in an engaging and hands-on way, and then provide them with activities to apply those, both independently and in small group and in whole group instruction. And then students, their confidence grew because those skills were just explicit to them, and they could see themselves doing it and feel themselves doing it, and they were reading, so they felt that and noticed that.
Coming into kindergarten and really focusing on alphabetic principle and phonemic awareness, when they've got those two things under their belts, they're unstoppable in kindergarten. What I'm seeing out of 5- and 6-year-olds this year, first grade teachers are going to lose their minds.
It's been exciting. Now that it's the end of the year, I'm conducting assessments for June report cards. And so I have been sitting with students and listening to them read high-frequency words in the context of a sentence. And students are reading. They are sounding out words, they're blending words, they're a lot more intentional with saying what they're reading, saying what they're looking at, basically.
In the past, by this point in the year, we'd have lots of kindergartners that could tell us their letters, tell us their letter sounds, and now we have kids that know what to do with those sounds. So they're reading words and writing words in a way that we've not seen in previous years.
Since working with our literacy coach, I have noticed an enormous difference in my students' skills and growth. I've never made it to this point in the year with this many students at or above grade level in literacy. And just being in my classroom, you can walk around and see students confidently reading and reading for fun and reading with joy. And that is a new experience for me this year.
Teachers want to do the very best job that they can for kids, and to have a partner in that work to share ideas with and to help them propel their students forward. They've been hungry for it because they just want to do the very best they can for kids.
You see a lot of those breakthroughs happen. And that's what I was in this profession for, is like to really see the impact and the process of seeing these kiddos learn how to read or learn how to write. And for me, that's what brings me joy in this profession.
Thank you for indulging us in that lengthy video. I just think it's so wonderful to bring students' faces and teachers' voices into the room. Teachers really do want to do the absolute best for their students. So while it helps to hear from teachers about the work and get a sense of what is occurring in the classroom, reviewing the data to learn if our program is working is essential. So we are very happy to report that our first year revealed marked gains for our students. As you can see from this graph, the number of students who are in the blue or green, which is proficient, is increasing. According to statisticians, a 1% gain is statistically significant. And usually when you implement a new program, you usually get an implementation dip. We did not see that. Last year, we had a gain of 16% in growth for our kindergarten students. I know there was a little question on that, so I'm going to try to explain it. So that is in the fall to spring of 21 to 2022, we had a decrease of 5% decrease of students requiring intensive reading intervention. And in the spring to fall of 2022, 2023, the very next year, we had a decrease of 21% of students in intensive. So this equates to 154 fewer students requiring intensive reading intervention by first grade. In first grade, an 11% growth equated to 130 fewer students needing intervention, and at second grade, it was a 3% growth, which equated to 99 students, and the percentages are different, and numbers are different because of the number of students enrolled. So if you're curious as to why our gains lessened in each grade level, that just goes back to the reason why we need to invest in early childhood education. As you know, as students progress in the grades, it becomes harder and harder to intervene on some of these skills. So all that change in instruction and progress is well and good if and only if our students are socially connected and emotionally well. I'm going to transition now to our coach, Marie Claire Wanacott, to talk a little bit about that. Should I just move this or, oh yeah, okay. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Social emotional learning. The why behind it is because it supports our students, but it also supports our teachers. We know that when we take the time to learn and practice skills like you see up here on the slide, we see positive results in both mental wellness, safe schools, and academic achievement. And we do this for our early learners, but also for all of our elementary students. So I'm excited to tell you a little bit about how we do that here in North Clackamas. We have an amazing curriculum that we use called Caring School Community that teaches these skills. One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this curriculum is because of the foundational research behind it. This is a curriculum that's built on decades and worldwide of research that talks about how human beings are intrinsically motivated to learn and use those skills. And that research says that when our basic psychological needs of autonomy, belonging, and competence are met, we are more intrinsically motivated. So very briefly, autonomy is basically, I feel like my life is going in the direction that I want it to go, according to who I am. Belonging, I feel like I am liked, cared for, and respected by the people around me, and I care for, like, and respect them. And then competence, I feel like I have the skills to be successful at what's in front of me, but I also feel a level of achievement when I work towards something. So that's the foundation behind this curriculum that we use. And we know when children's motivation becomes more intrinsic, they learn more deeply, they have higher levels of achievement, they persevere longer, they're happier with their teachers, they're happier with their learning, and they're more pro-social, they're kinder to others around them. So Caring School Community is a curriculum that teachers use daily in both morning circles and closing circles. And the activities are focused on a different topic week by week. So it might be a topic like welcoming new students or preparing for a substitute teacher. It might be something like talking about kindness or making school a happy place. Or a social issue that's coming up like teasing or resolving conflicts, or it might be planning a cross-age buddy activity that you're going to do with your buddy classroom. So this curriculum is really focused on the social awareness and relationship skills that we know we need in school to learn and in life. But there's also, we know in our schools, need for emotional regulation support. Our teachers have asked for that. So in addition, we've added 1 week every month specific activities to build emotional regulation skills. Just like academic skills, we know that social emotional skills, some are strengths for us and some we all need to work on. Our social emotional data, as well as just our experiential data, has shown that we have some students that need some support in understanding what regulation emotions feels like in their brain and body. And in response to this, we now have 8 of our schools that have a regulation skills room where kids can go. This is a room that's carefully designed as a sensory safe environment where kids really can get that experience, but then also learn some additional skills to transition back into the general education, classroom environment, school-wide environment, and life to support them. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Diana, who's going to talk to you about math.
Exciting. All right, we're going to make math a little exciting. So I want to give you an example of what early math looks like in the early years of school. So I'm going to have you do first. You thought you were going to not have to do math today. I'm going to have you think about how did you learn what the number 6 represented? Think back about your childhood. What did that look like? And how would you teach a child what the number 6, written as it is as a numerical number, means? I'm gonna give you a little time to think. We call it private reasoning time, and I want you to draw something on a piece of paper. And if you're looking at my card, you're cheating. I'm kidding. Kidding. I would give you more time, but I heard we're on a time limit. So if you drew something like this, then that's pretty typical for a student. It's what we see on a dice or die. And sometimes kids will draw something that looks like this, right? So one of the really important things about early math is that no matter if you drew this or you drew this, it means the same thing, right? But what's important is that 6 is 6 items. It doesn't matter if they're elephants or if they're goldfish. No matter how big or small they are, they're still 6, right? I know for us, it's like, I know. But if you think back, like, how did you get that visual in your head, right? And then after that, we want students to be able to compare. You probably were able to look at this and be like, oh yeah, that one's bigger, that one's smaller. But it does take a little bit of thinking around that for kids in K1 too, K1. So when we can say what's bigger and smaller, that's when we can start doing like what we think as adults, what math is, right? But this conceptual understanding, this being able to move, I would have these on like probably little tokens so kids can move them. To be able to move the math and build the 6 is very, very important. So I know if I move 6, I move more, and I have to move 3, it's less, okay? Then we talk about the number 6. If you've ever talked to a little kid who's just building their number sense and the conceptual understanding of it, you say, you give them the goldfish, you say, count to 6. You get 6 goldfish. And they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're like, stop, 6, right? You've done that, right? It's because they haven't yet internalized what really 6 means in this continuation. It's like the alphabet. So if you think of literacy, you ask kids, like, what's the letter P? And they have to go LMNOP, right? And then they find P. So same with numbers, they have to find what 6 really means. So when we get that conceptually and understand that this means this, and means 6 elephants and 6 goldfish, we give them 6 goldfish and say, I get 4, you get 2. So what are we starting to teach them? Addition, right? But we're also trying to teach what makes 6. So 1 plus 5 makes 6, 3 plus 3, 2 plus 4, all the things. And so we start breaking up the numbers, addition as well as subtraction. So if I took 4 out, how many are left? These are really big concepts for little kids. But where we're really trying to go, and I could go further, but I'm just gonna give you a small example, is algebra. So what they're really thinking about when we say the missing add-in is really what we're saying is, if I give you A and C, what is B, right? And then we also start developing, if 4 and 2 can make 6, then 2 plus 4 can also make 6, right? So then in algebra, we think A equals B plus C, or it can equal C plus B, right? But when I was in algebra, because I learned to memorize math and not really understand the numerical value or the conceptual understanding of number sense, when we got here, I was like, what are you talking about, right? And you give me a little, I agree with you. Right? So what we are trying to do with math is really build, like I said, the conceptual understanding. We are using a framework from the teacher development group called the Mathematical Habits of Mind and Interaction. You can really think of this broadly, not only in math, but in all different areas of education. But what we really want to be having kids understand is how the hows and whys of math. Why did that happen? How did you make that? How do you know that? Why is it important that you know that? Would it be still the same if we did this? We want them to start thinking about, can I justify my answer? Like, I think I know this is true, and this is why. See, we started doing that in high school when we proved geometry, right? And we stayed up for hours and hours doing that. But we're trying to get kids to start to that right away in the early math. And then can I generalize? I think this is true of other things. So if this can happen in this situation, can it happen in other situations? And so just think of these tiny little bodies thinking that much about the numbers they're learning. And then also, like, where am I stuck? Could there be more strategies? Could I do it this way and a different way? Could my neighbor also be right? And that it's not just one right answer, but we can all be right and still get to the same concept, right? The answer is important, but it's not the most important. All right, I almost used my phone for that. So how do we support mathematics? We have 3 elementary schools right now who are participating in Math Studio. Math Studio is also led by Teacher Development Group, and they're leading pre-K. So we have some studios in pre-K as well as up to 5th grade. There are 17 K2 teachers who are attending How Math Teaching Matters. That's the first 3 days of the training. If I had hours, I would love to tell you more about that, but you're always welcome to join us. Elementary coaches will also be attending Math Studio. So we now have elementary coaches in every building, and they are taking knowledge back to the building and doing the job embedded coaching that can happen on site, relevant to what they're learning or teaching. And then 4 elementary schools are piloting the 2 new math curricula, where we're looking with the lens of conceptual understanding, and our students can be able to progress in a very strong math knowledge. And then the other thing that we have is Dreambox. This is adaptive technology, which is so amazing in where we've gone from when I was in school and where we are now. Students complete lessons, we hope around 5 lessons a week, and it's adaptive, so it always fills in what students need, as well as help them grow in where they need to grow. In that, there's also assessment data that teachers can look at and push out up to 2 lessons a week. That is very what the next step for each student. Teachers, the accelerated learning is recognized and supported by Dreambox. So students, while I might be in 4th grade or 2nd grade and learning this, I might have some missing pieces in my career as a student, and it's going to fill in these pieces. As well as if I'm in 2nd grade and I need to be, I'm tag, I identify as a student who is tag, or I need to learn at a different rate, it's going to adapt for that as well. All right, so that's a little bit about math, and I'm going to bring you back to Jen.
Thanks. All right, looking at our time, I'm going to speed through these last ones so there's some time for questions. So thank you both for joining and rounding out this presentation. It's been a true joy to celebrate the work that we've been doing in early learning. And while we are proud of the work we're doing, we're also fully aware that there is still work to be done. We still have far to go to reach the goal of students' race, economic background, or language not being a factor or predictor of future academic success. We hope to capitalize on the momentum that we've been engaged with further investment from the Student Investment Act, our allocation from the Preschool Promise Grant, and we're very excited about some early plans and getting into the planning of our Early Literacy Success Grant that will be coming from ODE, that we'll be applying for in January and will be coming to the board for approval. Access and equity is always our goal, and we cannot do this work alone. So we'll be engaging with families through empathy interviews and family literacy nights, and just to ensure that we are really bringing families to the center of this work. And of course, we always know we can do all the shifts in instruction that we want, but if our work is not culturally relevant and responsive, if students don't see themselves in the work and don't feel engaged in the work because it doesn't reflect their histories and their experiences, we're not going to go very far. So how are we working to improve? Here are a few items up here that listed that are different structures we're using to work on our improvement and continue our progress. Right now, we're really engaged in professional learning communities. We've been reestablishing those K-12, which is really, again, talking about alignment and ways that we as a district can support that alignment when all grade levels across our system are working on the same thing and in a similar manner. It's much easier to build that support within. You heard about data literacy on Saturday, so I won't belabor that. You heard about multi-tiered systems of support. And of course, Diana brought up our school-based coaches. We are thrilled to have school-based coaches in all of our elementary schools. And of course, they're coming alongside our principals who are really stepping up as instructional leaders in this work. So a few of us administrators have been studying the work of Dr. Goldie Muhammad and reading some of her work recently. So I just want to end with this quote. This is a shift we're really trying to make across our system. And rather than just kind of shifting our lens, rather than looking at gaps and thinking about, holes in learning, or you may hear lagging skills. These are some of the words that we use often. We're really trying to lean into recognizing our students and the inherent genius that they already come to us with. And how can we look at that genius, recognize that genius, and really cultivate that genius in our students, and use that lens to really see children as their whole selves. So thank you so much, and we're open to questions and comments.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Directors, who has a comment or a question? Director Dobson?
Thank you all so much for this presentation. It was amazing. It's so cool to hear about how our little ones are going to gain, fluency in math and reading, and all of the avenues that it opens up for them. And we know how hard you're working to make that happen. So appreciate you. I made my 6 in my mind with linking cubes, by the way. I'm all about the manipulatives. I just wanted to take the opportunity about when we're talking about the math, just to say that I know, some students and a lot of parents in the last, 10, 15 years have struggled with these like new ideas that we have about creating, math fluency in children. And I just am so appreciative of the strategies that you're employing, of the science that you're deploying to really teach kids math like it's a language, which it is. I will never forget the day that my kindergartner brought home math, and I looked at my husband like, what is this? But he's a mathematician, and he looked at it and he said to me, "Oh, they're trying to teach Lucy to think about math the way I think about math." And that was so meaningful to me. I still didn't get it, but I was 100% on board. If any of these strategies could help children develop the kind of, language fluency with math that they have, in their language that they speak at home by the time they get to kindergarten, and in the early grades beyond, then I'm 100% behind it. So, thank you.
Excuse me, thank you. Any other director have a question or comment? Director Bauer?
Thank you, Chair Benaloga. Thank you for the presentation. It was so informative and it was so positive. And the work that you're doing in literacy is exciting. And I liked your comment, first grade teachers are going to, lose their mind? That's great, yeah. I'm hoping they'll do the same eventually with math too. And I love the way you are breaking it down and representing 6 in so many ways. And then that tie to algebra. I had a short career as a math teacher in high school, 6 years, and I tell people I'm a teacher dropout because I couldn't take it. It was just too hard. So that's why I have so much. I just really appreciate what you do, and breaking it down and learning how to teach those concepts at such a early age. I was going to ask, keeping it positive, because I remember when I got kids at high school, they already had this, "Oh, I can't learn math." So I appreciate that. Struggling is good though, and not interrupting at the right point. How do you handle that? So you build their confidence, you challenge them. They talk about, can you just tell me a little bit more about how do you do that?
So if we went back to that mathematical habits of mind, one of the things that we tried to really instill in students is that one of the pieces of any kind of thinking, but mathematical thinking is that we all have stuck points. We all get to this point where like, I have no idea. I need to take a break, go for a walk, come back. Like that's just human life, right? Mm-hmm. And so celebrating those stuck points and celebrating when you find a way past that stuck point. And sometimes it takes a friend, and sometimes it takes an adult to help you, but that's okay because that's what learning is all about.
Great. What are you most excited about with the new math curriculum?
Oh, yeah. I'm excited. What am I most excited about? Wait, let me narrow it down. When can we, how much time we have? I think just like kind of to be able to roll out a curriculum along with a mathematical habits of mind will be great. I think the last time we tried to roll it out, we rolled it out not along with a rollout of curriculum. So it felt like an additional when it's really part of. Does that make sense? So that we're learning it together and students are learning it together. It's not we're doing this and we're doing this, but we're doing this together.
Because I do remember when I was on the board, there was some new math concepts that had some of this involved, but it's the way then you're approaching and teaching and working together, it sounds like.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. Just one other thing, only 15% of eligible children attend preschool when you showed, and there's so much that's such a great, I mean, that's where they first learn. You said, but then I think you said only 15% eligible have access. So is that the main problem? I know there's tons of barriers, but.
Yeah, access is actually a huge problem. There's so many factors to that. I mean, there's financial access, there's number of slots in our county, right? There's transportation is an access, a tricky part of the access point for some families if there's not something near their home. I've spoken with families who have trouble with the hours that they work, and especially we have a lot of families who are working alternate hours at Amazon. I have 2 families I spoke with recently about this who couldn't find childcare for their evening shifts. So there's so many reasons that so many factors. And also we just in Clackamas County do not have, especially for those who qualify for free preschool, we do not have enough preschool slots across our county to serve our families. I mean, we are full and on a wait list already. So yeah, it's something that we're working on in the county as well. I'm part of a group that's working with some of our government leaders and multiple entities across our county to really think about how we can present this issue and move this forward on the agenda.
Yeah, it sounds so important. And another part of that is retaining teachers, attracting teachers with the pay, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the great presentation.
Thank you. Director Kemp?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I like the way you disaggregate the data as well. That helps narrow things down, and good to see that. One question I had, a couple questions I had, it was centered around the preschool. You have one full location now. Is there a plan for the next locations? And how, I don't know how long it takes to fund, or how much it takes to fund one of these, and is it based on building access, or are you able to find the locations based on need?
So that's a great question. We are definitely, as I said, the state and the nation is starting to take note of this, and you want to jump in as well, taking notice of this. And yes, capacity is one of the issues that we're dealing with, also continued funding. We're hoping that the state will begin to be funding more public school preschools. And I think Shay's going to jump in and share a few
Yeah,
other
I would just say
factors.
there's complexity. I think funding is one part of it. Building access is another part of it. But there's also things that we struggle with, like while we're in staffing shortages. And so transportation and having bus drivers that can pick up the routes to get students. We have nutrition services components. There's things that we have to work through with our teachers unions in terms of the needs that are a little bit different for our preschool students versus our K-5 students, and ensuring that they have access to many of the, our PE and our music and all of those things. So those are just a few examples, but it gets pretty complex as we go, and we are exploring all of that and looking at all of those components to see what we can do. We want to be a part of bringing this forward and having more kids access it, as we know it's foundational.
Yeah, I mean, given the complexity, and there's a lot of things to balance. I mean, is there a strategic plan in place to develop the preschools in the district?
Well, what I can say is we need stable funding from our legislatures in order to do this for the long term. We started this with grant funding, and at some point we know that rolls off, and we then need to pick that up. And then also in terms of our facilities and all of those, again, back to the stable funding. So yes, we are very much looking at it, and we are devising some plans, but not sure how that will play out in terms of finance and funding.
Thank you. Vice Chair Wei?
Thank you. I really appreciated this presentation, so thank you all so much. Diana, I really love the hands-on. You brought me back to when I was kind of a student, but I was like, I wish I had a teacher like you. But that was going to be my sort of question. So, and all of you mentioned just the ways that instruction, right, teaching, they're changing all the time with new research, new models out there. So, like if I was a parent and again, first grader or second grader, how would you communicate that to parents so that, because I'm sure the parents that we have now today are like, wow, like I never was taught this, or like, what is going on with, and so I'm sure there's curiosity amongst parents too, especially at this age of wanting to be the best parents and, helping support their kids at home. So how do you go about doing a little bit of that parent family engagement piece, but then also more specifically, because I was looking at the equity data disaggregation slides of, there are, certain places where we can improve. So how do you also just engage parents who just, again, their child might need extra support?
Do you want to talk about math? And then I can talk about
So it makes me think we also, as a district, have a community engagement specialist who we are targeting that work to support families who may need a different avenue to get the information, right? And so I think of that. I think a lot of the schools are doing coffee with the principal, and topics like this have come up in the coffees and or after school math engagement nights. I think a lot of the work is having parents experience a similar experience, right? And because memorization, it's very quick and it's very easy to see results, right? And so it's having to debunk that. And I know it takes time. And so one of the things I've done with parents at one of the schools I was at is I want you to do math your way that is most comfortable with you. And then we're gonna do a multiplication problem together. I'm gonna show you 10 ways how to do that. And then how do you feel now afterwards as equipped to help your student? And they're like, oh yeah, right? Like I never knew, and we'll probably forget tomorrow, but I'm here to help you with that. And so I think how can we also educate the community and families as we move forward?
And I would just add, as part of our integrated grant program and development, we did a lot of community engagement just to learn from families, right? We want to know what families want to know, where are they finding barriers, and we're eager to continue that work with the Early Literacy Success Grant. We're hoping to do some additional, we started this with our preschool program, and we hope to continue this work with some culturally specific empathy interviews to really try to understand where we're missing the mark, and learn the funds of knowledge our families already have so that we can build upon those, really figure out the strengths of our families, learn from them, as well as we want to share with them some of the strategies and shifts in practices that we're doing. I think last time I was here, I showed you a few bookmarks that we've shared with families that kind of help them understand some of the strategies that we're sharing with their students when they get stuck on a word in literacy or they're working on their fluency. And we're really trying to connect those pieces and really build that alignment between what's happening at home and back and forth, right? So it's not just about sharing what we're doing at school with you, but also learning what's going on in your home that we can capitalize on. So.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Director Dobson.
One more question. I wanted to ask about the scaffolding that's in place for advanced readers. So like you have Dreambox for the kids who are identified as TAG and math. Is there an adaptive technology that's being used for literacy?
In the area of literacy, we have used a couple of different programs in the past. EPIC is one thing that teachers often use that has varying reading levels. We are also looking into some other things in the future. I would say in the area of literacy, we have really invested in, especially in early learning, in these beautiful, diverse classroom libraries that range levels across the system, because we know that students come to us, some students really working on pattern books, and other students come into kindergarten reading chapter books. So we have a range, and we also have a range of interests. So while there is some, as we talked about, we really are working on the core literacy practices. Within the core, we still know we need to differentiate, right? So while all students can learn phonics, and it will help some students decode words, it will help other students really with that spelling aspect, right, of writing. So all students are gaining knowledge in that area. And then as we differentiate through small groups to really make sure that students are getting what they need. Some students are working on higher level comprehension skills, while other students are breaking apart words and blending and working on those more foundational aspects of reading. So within the classroom, we are striving to do more of that differentiation, but it has been something that we have considered looking into as well, something that's more computer adapted, just as one other additional way that we can support that differentiation.
I do want to add, I think it's important, we do have Lexia that we use at the middle school level, and we are using it as well with some of our students with disabilities in terms of for that adaptive learning and working with teachers. And so a little bit outside of this, but we do have it and are using it targeted and looking at moving forward with it. So just wanted to add that.
All right, thank you. Well, of course, as many of you know, I ran a preschool at home for 26 years, so this is my love language, like taking care of the littles. So I just know how important it is. I know how important it is to build those relationships, to build love and strength and compassion, and that really starts from the very beginning. And quality, loving, fun, loud, colorful preschools is the way that we do that, right? So much. I have a quick question about one of the data points. You said only 15% of eligible children attend preschool. Is that district, county, state? 15% of what?
That was the most recent percentage that I learned from Clackamas County.
Clackamas County.
Yeah.
Okay, so not the district per se, Clackamas County.
All of
Okay.
Clackamas County, yeah.
So I know you don't have all the answers, and I know if we had, lots and lots of money and monopoly money that we could do some of these things with, but so we're not reaching 85 kids out of 100. So what can we do, or what can we do as a district? What can ODE do? What can we do connecting with pediatricians? What do we do? Because I went to the Wichita Center the other night for the resource fair, and it's just incredible the way we have those resources weaved at the Wichita Center. It's truly incredible. So what do we do? What can we do for those 85 kiddos that are not in preschool? What do we do? And some of those kids may never be in preschool. They may be able to be home with a parent or a grandparent, and that is the plan. But then what do we do to support those families so that kids are still ready for kindergarten?
That's a wonderful question. As you saw, we really have been tailoring our efforts on preschool and uplifting the preschool programs countywide. And that's a great question. How can we really engage our families who do not have access right now? Of course, I'm going to say advocate, 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 right? Write letters, please. We do need stable funding, as Shay said, at the state level to grow this. Because, again, I may be biased, but I believe that high quality preschool is the most, essential that we could move forward with, right? And I also know that there are children at home with their families, and there are many programs out there. Ready, Set, Go is a beautiful program that's not, it's not a full day preschool, and parents and children join together. So I would say expanding those programs. I know there have been some initiatives to build apps that families that engage with, and they get little messages that come to their phone that share, like, try this with your child. Take out a mirror today. Let's make different faces and different letter sounds. And so there have been many initiatives across the county and across the state to work on that. As a department, again, our focus has been on really onboarding preschool and uplifting the preschools in the area, but that is definitely something that we could think about moving forward with. What are some ways that we might be able to better engage our youngest learners and their families, and kind of bringing some of those strategies and those ideas for us. I love that idea.
All right, excellent. Thank you. It's just so important. I think we all know just how incredibly important a wonderful, strong foundation is for the beginning of education, especially. And I love that we're reaching those 15%, and I love that we have the new preschool promise, and that we're able to bring students into our buildings and have those services. But then I worry about about the students whose families truly cannot get them into preschool. We're looking at the prices of preschool, and there are families that are spending $16,000 a year for preschool programs. And that is a very large portion. It doesn't always have to be that much, but there are programs that are that much, and it just makes it very, very unaffordable for a lot of families. Every family, it makes it very unaffordable when you're making choices like that, when preschools are costing, or childcare situations are costing $1,000 a month or more. That's a really big piece of our families' budgets, and I just see that that's such a barrier. So, but thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I love this quote. And I've seen a lot of this lately, where people are talking about, when your plant isn't doing well, you don't pull it up. You don't pull it out by the roots. You figure out what can we do to improve the environment, right? So that's what we need to do with all of our kids. So thank you so much for your presentation. Wonderful. Thank you. All right, we are going on to, next on the agenda is multiple pathways at New Urban High School presentation. I welcome Executive Director of Secondary Schools, Petra Callan, for this agenda item.
Hi, good evening. I don't know who scheduled me after early learning, but it's a setup because I can't compete with that. But I am here to talk about multiple pathways at New Urban High School. This is a presentation that really reflects a report that those of you who were on the board last year received in spring. So some of you already have some level of background knowledge on this topic. I should have Dr. Ryan Richardson, Associate Director of Secondary Programs, with me, as he has been a big part of this work. However, he has end of season middle school cross-country responsibilities that we wouldn't have wanted to take him away from. So, all right. I want to start, like I did in the data literacy presentation, with our mission. here in North Clackamas, wanting to ensure that every single student graduates empowered to act with courage in life and to strengthen our local and global communities. And multiple pathways, or the concept of multiple pathways, is really about providing our students in North Clackamas with the flexibility and personalization that they need to realize this particular mission. As we know, that we offer really amazing programs at our neighborhood high schools, but sometimes students need something different. Okay. So our purpose here is, and I'll go back to the words personalized and flexible, and to give students different approaches to their education. We want to keep our students with us, and if what they have been experiencing in a neighborhood high school isn't working, we want to ensure that we give them an experience that will be supportive for them. These particular programs that I'm going to talk about are, well, except for a GED center, are not new to us. But what is new is that we are sort of combining these resources and services under one umbrella. And this allows us to be more cohesive, to really provide a continuum of support, to be more sort of individualize what our programming needs to be for a student. And also when we combine resources, that we can leverage those much better. So I'll go through all of these that you see on the screen, sort of one by one. But first, this last spring when I did this, it took me 100 years. But it's a nice little visual of our multiple pathways umbrella at New Urban High School. So New Urban High School has not undergone any kind of drastic changes. It still is what we have known it to be for many years, which is a smaller school environment for students to really get a personalized education. And each and every student that walks down in the halls of New Urban High School is known and seen and can be supported in a really individualized way. Things that are new, and this started last year, is that with a change in the schedule and going from a trimester to a semester program, now students have access to Save and Schallenberg, which we know is really important. Before, they were not able to access it because the schedules just wouldn't align. And now students have access. Last year, we didn't have as many students there that we wanted to, because it was a kind of a new thing. And the students were just like, what, you want me to go where and do what? But this year, we've really seen an increase in the amount of students accessing the programs and feeling a lot more confident. I was really happy to be over at Save and Schallenberg on a day, this was last spring, when all of New Urban High School came and did a field trip over there so that they could kind of really feel comfortable with, like, okay, what does this place look like? What is it about? What are the teachers like? So they could visualize themselves there. And it's really made a difference. And I'll talk about this a little bit more as I talk about New Urban Online, formerly known as VOP. But now our students at New Urban also, that we've brought kind of things under one umbrella, have access to the virtual online program, or New Urban Online. And so we're able to really customize a certain educational experience. So for example, in a school that is as small as New Urban High School, you can't offer all the classes, right? It's just impossible. But what you can do is you can ensure, if a student needs to take a particular advanced course or a language or whatever it might be, that through Save in Schallenberg, like for example, I think you can access Japanese there, but you can also access these courses through our online options so that it just provides more access to students. So New Urban Online, now we're under a New Urban umbrella, and but the access to programming and format is not changing for the students and families who have found a lot of success with this particular program. These students have access to Save in Schallenberg and also access to some in-person classes at New Urban High School if that's something that really works for them. Now, oftentimes there's reasons why our students are online. There's a whole host of different kinds of reasons. And in some cases, that might not be the thing for the student, but in some cases, it really might be. Maybe accessing an art class at New Urban High School in person is beneficial. And so now there is an opportunity to do that. So New Urban Online still does retain the middle school program. So it is not co-enrolled with New Urban High School. So the middle school is still the middle school. It is, and we talked about this a little bit in the class size report. That was a long time ago now, but that the numbers in our middle school program are small and they tend to be shrinking. And so we're really going to have to look into the future. And so does it really make sense to retain that program? But that is a conversation for another day. Twilight Center, this has been in existence at New Urban High School for quite some time. This is an evening option for students who are looking to finish their requirements to earn a diploma. They are not able to access the courses that they need for a whole host of reasons. Maybe they are needing to work, maybe they have others to care for, whatever the reason might be. This is an option to get those 12th graders finished in a supportive environment so that they are able to graduate from high school. And they do graduate from their neighborhood high school within this program. So there is support at New Urban High School in the physical location so that it's after school hours into the evening so that students are able to come and access in-person support and how often that they need it. All right, Oak Grove. This is a program that we offer so that we are able to keep our kids with us and help move them forward on a path toward graduation. So this is for students who, this is an environment in lieu of expulsion. So when things don't go quite as planned and students make bigger mistakes, sometimes it's necessary for us to look at a different option for them for a period of time. And we always work really hard we don't want to expel anybody. So most of the time it is appropriate to then give students that place at Oak Grove where they can focus on their academics, credit attainment for our high school students, but also in restoration and skill building too, because the goal is to successfully transition students back to their home schools and to also individualize whatever support that student needs to help them be successful and get back on a positive trajectory. Oftentimes, what happens is that the high school age students really enjoy the smaller environment at New Urban High School. So a lot of them actually stay and find success there. Reconnection Center. Reconnection Center is the work of all of the folks over at New Urban High School, but I would be remiss to not say that our big Reconnections guy is Luke Scarpino. Those of you who know him know how amazing he is. And what he does is he is all about figuring out who needs to be reengaged. So he is out at the schools all the time. He's talking to families, he's talking to students, saying, okay, we need to get you reengaged in school. And what does that look like for you? What is that personalized plan? Do we need to get you in, is actually New Urban Online really the best way for you to continue to engage in your education? Is it, a couple different programs? Is it that we need to be more intentional about getting you engaged at Saban Schallenberg? Is it maybe even something outside of our system, such as Portland Youth Builders or Job Corps? So what is it going to take in order to help you as a student be engaged and be successful so you can go ahead and realize a really positive plan for after high school? And this is a new kind of thing that we're working on. And actually, Ryan and Luke were at a GED little sort of a small conference in Salem. I think it was Monday. And really, so learning more about how these programs are looking all over the state, as well as learning about really important things like what it means to be a get a testing center with a stamp of approval, so it's all like legitimate and all those kinds of things. And it is intended to have some students start engaging in that this year. Now, we have always had students engaging in GED programs. Of course, we do our best to keep kids in our regular high school and other options, but sometimes a GED is the best path. And we have had to have students go and do that with outside providers. Oftentimes it's like Clackamas Community College. So our goal is to provide this option in district so that we can really shepherd and ensure completion, as well as provide the kinds of wraparound services that we can provide. And we don't want to just say, okay, go off and do this. We want to keep all of our students here with us and help them to be successful. And that is an overview about what we've got going on over there at the beautiful New Urban High School. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Directors, does anyone have any questions or comments? Director Bowers.
Really, thank you for allowing the access to Saban Schellenberg too. That was great. And one follow-up, isn't the 5-year graduation rate last year 90%? Wasn't it something like that?
Oh gosh, off the top of my head.
I saw that.
You're nodding, Tiff. Do you remember it?
And I just thought, wow. And
I believe I reviewed it this morning, 91%.
Yeah.
It was higher than I thought. I mean, that goes along with this whole program. I mean, we don't give up on kids. And I've
Yes.
always noticed that. I mean, I know that. And so you're to be commended for that. And I had a question about reconnections, but you answered it when you told me who was heading that program, because I see him everywhere.
He is everywhere. I don't know how he does it. I'm wondering if there's more than one of him. Like,
I know. Thank you, though, for that report.
Thank you. Director Kemp.
It was good to hear that the school schedules align with New Urban High School and Saban Schellenberg, because we've heard that kids that take 2 classes at Saban Schellenberg have a much higher rate of high school graduation. So is that it seems like that's a key stat that might be looked at and monitored to see how it can measure the program and make sure these schedules stay aligned.
oh yeah, absolutely. And there is a real commitment from New Urban and Saban Schellenberg to be working together. As example of that, students from New Urban were given a real preference in terms of scheduling and making sure that students were able to get into classes instead of, we often have wait lists. And unfortunately, we don't always have as much programming as we want to have in order to make sure every student gets exactly the course that they want. But we really did make sure that we work closely with New Urban on that.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Dobson, did you have a question or comment? Okay. Thank you. I love graduations, first of all. I just think that graduations are so fun, but something about New Urban's graduation, the energy in the room at a New Urban graduation is just amazing. And the culture there is truly amazing. I just had a really quick question, and of course, I think we've figured out that there are 9 Luke Scarpinos probably.
Okay.
And that's how he's getting it all done.
I believe it.
I think so. So one of the things that my question is, what can we do? Because the program is a great program, and I understand that it's an alternative. However, what are we doing to identify kids before they need an alternative, that maybe New Urban is just the place for them?
Well, I think it's really about helping and if we're going to go back to middle school now, is helping middle school staff as well as students and families understand what the opportunity is, because it is. I think people hear. Whatever they may think about what New Urban is based off of what somebody says here or somebody says here, but really understanding the level of personalization that is offered there and individual support, and that it's not about this is not a school where the kids who can't pull it together go. Like that's not what that is. And it's really important to help staff and families throughout the district, especially at that middle school level, understand those pieces, because otherwise they make decisions based off of an assumption.
Excellent. And I think that's so true, that we really have some excellent opportunities and different options and different pathways for graduating and for being successful in high school. And all of those things are great. It's just a matter of each student feeling successful and getting what they need out of that education. And it doesn't matter, in the end, it really just matters that they graduated and they were successful, not necessarily the name of the school on the diploma. Right.
Yeah,
it just matters that they got there and they were successful. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other questions? Director Bauer? No? Okay. Just checking. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Next on the agenda, our final item of the night is our Student Success Act, Student Investment Account Annual Report. I welcome Student Investment Account Administrator Joel Stewart and Director of Integrated Program Jen Dove-Kiltow.
First of all, good evening to all of the Board of Directors, and it's always a great pleasure to be here, sitting here. And I think what an evening where we've started talking about preschool now all the way through high school. And I heard in the presentation earlier about finding that place of joy. And I think there are places of joy all throughout this district. And I know as an administrator, when you had one of those days, you would go find that place of joy, and it could be in a different place, but you had to reconnect. And so this past week, I actually got out to Oak Grove and the preschool, and little Elias gave me the little chopped up paper with the little hearts, and we got to play with spiders and goo, and it truly was a place of joy. And you could say that whether you're at New Urban, whether you're at a middle school program, there's all those places. And I just appreciate the board and your involvement in finding those places of joy. So with this, the student investment account, a requirement from ODE is that we complete an annual revisit of the past year. So Jen is here because she represents the new, and I represent the old. So we're going to be looking at kind of recapping the past 3 years of student investment account and what has happened, transpired this past year. So with that, going back specifically, what is the purpose of the student investment account? And that is to meet students' mental and behavioral health needs, and then to increase academic achievement, reduce academic disparities for students of color, students with disability, emerging bilingual students, students navigating poverty, homelessness, and foster care, and other student groups that have historically experienced academic disparities. So it goes back to, as we went out into the community and asked for finding key themes and needs assessment from the community. Specific things came out: increasing mental health supports, retaining, recruiting a diverse staff that represented our students, lowering class size and caseloads, strengthening culturally relevant practices, strengthening community partnerships, and also just increasing proficiency in literacy, what we hear about tonight, expanding social services to students and families. So with that, as the district developed the new strategic plan, there are so many common themes that you find throughout this document as we went again out into the community that you saw over this past 3 years. So this slide represents the actual allocation that we received in 2022-23, and that was approximately $3.3 million. I will note, because I think it's important to note, that if you look back at 2021, the original proposed allocation of 13.5, almost $13.6 million, which was going to grow each year, was never it never got to even in the 3 years. And I think that's an important note, and you'll see that in that first year, as many of you were on the board, we received about 1/3 of what we had planned for and thought through, which will be one of the challenges and concerns that I'll talk about in just a few moments. Okay, you can set this one. So with that, there were 5 strategies that were developed and that represented the committee that came together, that involved community, staff, and students. And you can read those 5 strategies. They're very similar to the themes, but you'll see the class size and increasing the capacity of teams, moving towards more culturally relevant practices, to continue to focus on our vision, and to recruit, hire, and retain exceptional employees that reflect the diversity of the North Clackamas School District. And this slide represents how in those different strategies, where the money came through at. And so there are over probably close to 100 people that are paid for through the SIA that represent all of that work. And it's not just this work, the SIA, it's the high school success funds, it's the general funds, it's the one-time funds that all work towards this. So sometimes they'll say, well, what does SIA? Well, SIA is one sliver of all the great thinking and the strategic work that multiple programs are braided and coming together. So it's hard to define just this one. When we talk about positive impact, I will say that even tonight, just as I was just taking notes back there as we were listening to presentations, one thing brought up was Caring School Community Curriculum. That was purchased by our district through SIA funds, but I'll just say through district funding through SIA. Marie Claire Wanacott, the SEL, she was specific to title because she's title funded. Well, SIA provided some funds so she could also help other schools and classrooms to give the expertise that she brings to our district. What was brought up was decodable texts. Well, those were purchased. You guys approved decodable texts a couple of years ago for literacy. The Dreambox adaptive technology was supported. Classroom libraries. Earlier brought up the Wichita Center. The Wichita Center, many of the staff there that helps provide services to our families is supported by this funding. Ready, Set, Go program was mentioned. It also, so we can look at all the social workers, that we have counselors in all of our schools. So again, this helps just a bit of additional counseling with general funds, other funding sources, but we're able to have counselors in all of our buildings. And I think the list could go on and on about the positive impact, but the positive impact is about the people in this room who are working together to put together funds to make incredible things happen. Challenges along the way. I want to center in. So during this 3-year period, COVID happened, if you didn't realize that. And so just this shortage of teacher substitutes, and many times we would have staffing and it was for a specific reason, but 3 teachers don't show up for the day because they're sick and ill. And so to meet the basic needs, those that were focused on this now have to take on the urgency of the day and are taking on this, so they can't do that, not at fault. They're doing what is urgent. And so that became an issue. Another issue that I would say would be a challenge is that when we talk about mental health supports, behavioral health, everyone in the district got the same initiative, the same focus. So who are we all looking for? We're all looking for experts in those areas, and there's a limited amount of professionals. And so just hiring can be difficult. But I think that the large one, and it was mentioned again, when we talk about even preschools, we talk about funding sources that are here today, sometimes then they're gone, then you've started a program, and now you don't have basic funding to meet for just general classroom, and when we think about the optics, how can we then be starting new programs, and now class sizes are at 40 because we didn't get general funding. And so I just think it's so vitally important to try to create, as Shay stated, stability and a stabilized, what are we going to do as our core, and we're going to stick to that. And when we think about growth, we think about, can we sustain it? And that's not here for 1 or 2 years, but that's there for a long period of time. And I think, again, because it's so primarily people focused, that we then, when we have to make cuts, it's people and programs that then, but wait a minute, it showed results, it's making a difference. Okay, but are you willing to say, we're going to keep that, but you're now going to have 42 in your third grade classroom. And I think that that's what makes this so difficult, and something to always think about as we move forward. So with that, just wanted to, the next steps for this are the integrated programs, and Jen Dove-Kiltow has come graciously tonight to just kind of talk about next steps.
Yeah, thank you. So I've presented to you before around the new guidance from the Oregon Department of Education for integrating 6 individual programs under one umbrella called Aligning for Student Success. And that includes both the student investment account that Joel just spoke about, high school success, career technical education, continuous improvement planning, everyday matters, and early indicators and interventions of systems. So again, previously, as Joel indicated, there was great in-depth needs assessments done, and we did those again last year. Some of you participated in those conversations. We took a deep dive in both qualitative and quantitative data, and we identified our needs for the district, and that are going to be funded through these 6 different, some of these initiatives come with funding, others are non-funded. And so where we're at right now with this is our grant agreements, which I will present to you as soon as they're released from the Department of Justice. All state districts currently are hung up in the Department of Justice with the grant agreements. So as soon as we have the green light and have those, I will come to you and bring those to you along with the goals that we've set forth. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern. But I will say, a few weeks ago, I presented on the mental health initiatives and the contracts, and those are dually funded. Those contracts are funded through both the student investment account as well as high school success. And so again, it's just another indicator of, our community said, our students said mental health supports were needed. And these funds are a way that we're able to support those initiatives. So these are very important to our students and to our their futures. And so looking forward to picking up where Joel has left off and moving forward with those.
So we'll leave it at that with any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Do any directors have a question or a comment? Vice Chair Wade?
I'll go first this time. Thank you again for this sort of annual report of just where we are with these funds. And, I remember, I'm sure a lot of you also, just when a lot of the community forums, and I remember coming into a meeting here where, there were different tables where community, parents, everybody was together with like flip charts of their visioning of what they want to see. And Joel, I think obviously you were there and just leading this work. So thank you for taking all of that feedback and kind of putting it into this proposal and plan for us. So my question was going to be around, all of the positive impacts, that one particular slide that again, is really the result of this additional funding that we received, and kind of tying it back to the strategic plan, because I also was really happy that we were able to link the strategic plan that we were developing to these investments that we're making. So my question is really around, how do we measure, the outcomes, the success, right? Do we see that reflected in the strategic plan? Do we see that reflected in, all of the data that we are collecting? And I know we had a huge data presentation this past weekend. So I guess how do we know, right, that these investments are actually heading us towards that academic success goals?
I think there's a couple of things there. I think first and foremost, yes, we can look at specific data of literacy and math skill, which are very important. And just as we saw tonight in the early learning, and I think on Saturday you guys had that data piece, but there's more to, we asked a question a couple of years ago. We went back out to the community and said, maybe, what does student success look like for you and your family? And what came back to us was quite different. It wasn't just, yes, there was a basic understanding. We want our child to read and complete mathematics and be able to be proficient. But there was this underlying of, we also want to be respected. We want community. We want, if my child wants to do something in a different path, that they'll be honored and accepted. That's not going to show up on a data sheet of whether we were successful at meeting that or not, or if my child is going through a very difficult time, was the school responsive in either getting me supports, or they were a support to my child? That's being successful. And so I think, to get to you, we've got to continue to engage our community through small group, through our engagement specialists, through teachers. Teachers are always the best indicator of how are truly things going for our kids and for our families, and not losing sight of that, even in the midst. ODE is going to look at the longitudinal, are you making growth in reading? And I hope it would be our goal as a district to, yes, and we need to also look at other indicators of what our community is saying is success or not. I don't know if you have.
So there are 5 metrics that ODE has us set goals around. So reading by 3rd grade proficiently, 8th grade algebra ready, 9th grade on track, and high school graduation rates. So we know we have those, and we know which of the investments go to support those different goals. But we also had, as Joel said, that data that is not the hard data. And one of the requirements moving forward is for us to continually engage our communities, and to go back out into the community and to talk with them. And so we really will be, as we move forward, talking with focal groups, and talking with other community members about their experiences, their child's experiences. We definitely are going to continue to connect with our student equity members and engage with them. They were a big part of our needs assessment. And so there will be some of that softer, more qualitative data, if you will.
All right, thank you. Director Bauer?
Thank you, Chair Benaloga. Thank you so much for this work. I mean, it is phenomenal and it's huge. And I know when you were first assigned that, Joel, it was like, I don't know how you did it with all the requirements that they had, but the outreach was amazing. And then Jen's picking, and you're working as a team. When we visited Salem, I remember a couple legislators pushing us, saying, again, Kathy's question, how are you justifying this? But it seems like they were asking for even more reports back. So are you spending even more time changing and getting, are they having more requirements from you, from ODE and the legislature, on how you're using this money? And
so we're starting to see an uptick in that. So one of the impacts of COVID was there wasn't a lot of the data that they wanted to see, the reading, the mathematics. So they had to hold on that. But you will start to notice more questions specific to what activity is having the impact correlated to this growth specifically, and how much money are you investing? We also know that the amount of time and effort, every dollar of this has to be represented, and which school is receiving it and how much, to have mathematically a impact of dollar to dollar, student to student. And I've already, Jen and I have looked at the new Smart Sheet compared to the Smart Sheet that I used to have, and it's much more intensive and much more integrated, we'll just say. It's asking more of those more difficult questions to formulate A connected to B equals C, and we want to know that that's being done and we're getting what we spend our money on.
Well, thank you for all of that, and pointing out that really that number is not growing. Not sure why, except that we have to fight for every dollar every year when we go down there. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Kemp?
Yeah, thanks for the report. One question I had on the expanded mental health services that were acquired by the district, were the kids actually taking advantage of that? Was that, I don't know if there's a measure for that, I guess appointment hours or whatnot, and is there enough? Is that capacity for mental health services been, it is short, and do we not have enough?
I could say it's never enough. And we've greatly increased what we have had in previous years. And that's through these new contracts with new organizations. So we do have the ability. We don't have hard data yet as far as, but we know caseloads are already filling up. So we have therapists in schools. We have our contracted partnerships in schools, and they are working on, there's a little bit of FTE they're still trying to hire for, but every school that needs mental health therapy is getting it in some capacity. We know we need more.
Yeah. And I know the student enrollments are up now too, which we've seen lately from pandemic years. So that's probably also driven the need as well.
And it's also different needs in different places, right? So that's a piece of it too. I think that we have a fairly, so putting on my Director of Student Family Services hat, we have a really nice model that we're continuing to finesse and develop, where we have mental health partnerships, qualified mental health specialists, but we also have social workers and counselors, and they're working together to really support our students. So we're trying to provide as many wraparound within the school system that we can. And those are all very key elements for students' mental health support.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? All right. Well, once again, thank you so much. I want to point out that one of the words we really need to look at when we're looking at this is investment, right? And the state of Oregon has not invested in education and has disinvested for many years. So these are wonderful buckets of money, but it doesn't fill in the gaps of the other things that we are still missing, or that we're still not funding at the quality education model. And I believe that we've heard it a couple of times this evening, and we hear it often in the work that we do. It's advocacy. It's making sure that we're letting our legislature and the leaders of Oregon understand and know how important this is, and that we do need to invest, because this is about being successful and graduating successful students in the end. So thank you so much for all of your work. Appreciate the presentation as well. All right, we are ready to adjourn, my friends. And I just want to end the evening with a quote from Robert Kennedy. "It is not more bigness that should be our goal. We must attempt, rather, to bring people back to the warmth of community, to the worth of individual effort and responsibility, and of individuals working together as a community to better their lives and their children's future." So it is now 8:49 PM, and this public meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors is adjourned. Have a good evening.